Hello everyone, Robert Dempster here. So in this video we're going to continue with the blend if and the layer style settings, and this time we're going to add some effects onto this concept. And we're going to break down how I've created this particular concept and how you could use the same effect in your own. So let's get started. Now I'm going to just drop all of these layers down so you can see what the original image looked like. So I've modeled this in 3D codes, and we're going to have some lessons in that shortly. And this was the first result. So I've made the model in 3D codes, and then I have put this into KeyShot, and then I've done a render of it. So if we just have a quick look at the 3D code model, so this is what it looks like within the software. Okay, so we've got some nice close-up details there. And then we can put that into KeyShot, which again, we're going to go through this step by step in another video. And that's where we render this. So I've added some lights just to light this scene. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to add some effects. So here I've just got a paint layer here. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to show you how we can add some fire effects and how we can add a background here, nice and easy, using the same technique that we've done in a previous video. If you haven't checked that out, then go watch it. So here we've got our fire. So how would we add that effectively? So if I go over to my images and I'm going to copy and paste this fire on. So I've copied it. I can go to edit and paste, or I can press Control V on the keyboard, and that's going to paste it in. Now what you might do is just use the eraser tool and then start to erase the image, which is okay, you could do that, but it's very messy, and you can see we're starting to get that dark outline, which we don't want. So this isn't the best technique to use. So what else could we do? I suppose we could use the magic wand tool, okay, and then we could select these darker areas, and then I'm just hitting backspace to try and delete them. But again, this is very messy. I might need to go over to my lasso tool and begin to lasso around this area. But now we're starting to lose that nice soft edge, which doesn't look very good at all. It looks like we've just cut this out. So what else can we do? Personally, I wouldn't use any of those techniques. I would use either two options. Now here, I've set this to a screen. So over here where it says normal, I can select that, move down to screen. And again, you might want to just scroll up and down on these arrow keys until you have the desired effect. But screen is looking pretty good there. And then I can press Control T to free transform and then just skew that into place. Okay, so that is going to be the quickest way. We can just start to see some of that border there. So we may need to use the eraser just to remove any of those darker areas. And that's it. And we can do the same for the other side, but I'm going to use a different technique. This time we're going to use the blend if technique. So I'm going to copy and paste this image instead into Photoshop. Control V to paste. And we're going to double click on the layer, and that's going to bring up the layer style. So this time I want to remove all of the darker areas of the image that's on top. So the image on this layer. So we're going to go over to blend if, and I'm going to move this slider forward, and you can see that it's starting to already remove all those darker areas. But we're running into the same problem we had last time with the magic wand tool. You can still see that horrible jagged dark edge. So we're going to hold Alt on the keyboard and split that tab, and now we're starting to blend that in a lot more. Okay, so it's starting to actually blend into the background. So now I can move that into place, and we've got our fire. So there's just two ways that we can add our fire, and we could add this anywhere. Okay. Now if you move the underlying layer, so let's just double click on that again, and here we have underlying layer, that's going to bring the dark that's behind this flame forward. Okay, so it's going to start to disappear. And this is effect that I've used, if I can just go through my layers. Okay, on this Anubis layer, I've used blend if. And if I just double click on this so we can see the original, if I move these sliders back, we can see it's a lot more pronounced, it's a lot lighter, but this time using that underlying layer I can bring some of that wall texture forward, and I can blend some of the darker areas of the image, not too much, and then I can remove some of the lights from the image on top as well. So it looks faded, it looks like it's been painted on the wall and it's been there for quite a long time. And then we have our other layers. Okay, so now we're going to just move on to how we would place a sky in this scene. I'm just going to drop all these layers down again, and I'm just holding left click and dragging all the way down to hide all of those layers. So if I was to add stars or any image in this center area, because it's black, I usually render my scenes in black in the background if I know that I'm going to replace it in Photoshop, just because it's much easier to select this area. So I'm going to go onto my images and I'm going to copy and paste this one. Copy and paste. Okay. And I'm going to press Control T to free transform and just move this out. So there's multiple ways that we could do this. You could actually select what's in the background here. So we could go to our background layer and select this dark area here. We could then go back onto this layer and we could possibly do a copy and paste, so Control C and Control V, and then just hide that layer that's underneath, and now we have an exact cut of what's underneath there. That's perfectly fine, we can do that. The problem is that there might have been a part of the image that we wanted to keep, but now we can't. We can't move this around. It is cut to that exact stencil. So I'm going to delete this and we're going to use blend if instead. So let's just say, for example, I wanted to see what it would look like in the background, but I might want it a bit lighter, so I might want to move it over. So instead we're going to use that blend if. So I'm going to double click on that layer again, bring up the layer style, and this time I want the light of the layer underneath to come forward. So I'm going to hold this white tab, move it forward, and now we can see that these stars are only affecting the darker areas of this image. So we're going to need to move it quite far forward. Again, we can blend this, hold Alt and split to blend. In this case it's not doing too much because we've got quite a hard edge there. And then I can click OK. Now at this stage I'll usually just turn this eye on and just make sure that you haven't got any of these darker areas selected. So we can see if I just hide that, we can see some stars there. So I can just erase that. Any area where it was of the same value as the center there, it's also going to add those stars. So you might just need to erase them. So that's looking okay. Right, so again, now that I've used that blend if, now I can actually move this image around, and of course I've just erased that area before moving it, but you can see here we can actually move this sky and we can place it where we want to have this image. So that looks pretty good. So again, we might have just missed that little star there that we wanted to add. In this case we can do that. So it just basically, it gives you a lot more flexibility. Instead of just cutting around it and then using that one image, you can use blend if, and then you can move your image around and you can change it later on. Because although it might look good now, when you're 50, 60, 70% done with your painting, you might think actually that sky doesn't look good there at all. I might want to move this image down. I might want to replace it completely. So that, again, that just gives you a lot more flexibility. So I'm just going to turn these layers back on. Now here with the glow, I haven't used any style this time. Instead, I've just used the eraser tool. So if I just turn these layers off and then create a new layer, I can use the brush tool and I can make this fairly big. So again, use those tab keys. And I've got it set to a softer brush, so make sure it's soft, and then move these light rays out. So in this case, it's far too strong, so I'm going to need to go over to the eraser erase where it would be behind this pillar instead. And then I can again just use this eraser and very lightly on the tablet. I can't stress that enough. I know when you first use a tablet you want to press down really hard, but just have a nice light stroke there and then we get this effect. Yeah, if you go too hard you'll just erase the entire thing. So soft stroke, and then that's how we get that effect. You could also use the opacity if you still feel like it's too strong. Then you could move the opacity down. In this case, it looks okay. I might just move it down slightly. So this pretty much sums up how we can use the blend if and these layer styles. It's up to you which one that you want to use. If you get results just by using something like screen, in this case for the fire, then you can use that. But if you want a little bit more flexibility and how you can move your images onto the layer that's underneath, then I recommend using blend if. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.